Greetings everyone. My name is Pulkit Mehta, and alongside my team members Jing Shu and Rachel Viradharma, we are in the ninth group of the section called Team ARGO. And for today's debate, we will be opposing the resolution. Employees will perform at a higher level when rewards are based on comparison of their performance relative to their peers than when they are not compared. We believe that a topic breakdown is necessary for the audience to comprehend the perspective of our arguments. Taking a closer look at the resolution, we can break it down into three pieces: the goal and the two methods to achieve the goal. For today's resolution, the goal is to obtain a higher level of performance from the employees, and one of the methods is using rewards based on comparisons of the employees' performance relative to their core workers, while the other one is rewarding without comparing their peers. Hence, the two sides of the debate are comparison based rewards versus comparison free rewards. Since we are opposing the resolution, we will be arguing for comparison free rewards. We will be presenting our arguments only against comparing employees' performance to reward them rather than completely abandoning the comparison method. We also discovered basing the arguments on rewards would result in a moot point, since both sides of the debate require rewards to achieve the same final goal of a higher level of performance. Moving forward to the flow of this video, we are going to present three contention points to oppose the resolution and two rebuttal points followed by a conclusion. Our first contention point is that comparison leads to demotivation and slacking off. The second one is comparison invokes a feeling of unfairness in the employees. And unlike the two contention points, our third and final contention point is an alternative to social comparison called temporal comparison. Temporal comparison provides a fairer feedback and increases performance level. For the rebuttal, our first argument is that comparison leads to an increased motivation, and the second one is non-competitive reward programs are less effective than the competitive ones. To commence our argument, our first contention point is that comparison leads to slacking off and demotivation. Comparison-based rewards encourages people to compare the rewards to their peers, which gives them the information about a general ranking of themselves. After knowing the relative position, high performers tend to slack off and low achievers would be demotivated, both of which lead to a decrease in performance level. The first point under this contention is that people tend to compare their situations to their peers. Quoting the psychologist Leon Festinger from the social comparison theory, people have an innate drive to evaluate themselves, often in comparison to others. People make all kind of judgments about themselves, and one of the key ways that we all do this is through social comparison or analyzing the self in relation to others. The second subpoint under of this contention talks about why information about ranking is detrimental to performance level. According to a research article published on Knowledge at Wharton, an experiment designated at exploring the influence of ranking on employees' performance has concluded that when people are great, they know it, they tend to slack off. But when they're at the bottom and they're told they're doing terribly, they're demotivated. To sum up contention one, when employees receive comparison based rewards, it's in their human nature to compare the rewards to others. And when they know the relative ranking among their colleagues, the slacking off and demotivation would happen, which means that the employees will actually perform at a lower level when rewards are based on comparison. To explain the remaining contention points, I'm now going to hand it over to Jing.
Yeah, thank you, Pocket, for the introduction and contention one. So I will introduce the next two contentions. Contention two, feeling of unfairness decreases performance level. When rewards are based on comparison among peers, people are likely to perceive their employers as being unfair. Thus, feeling of unfairness would then lead to a decrease in performance level. We have three subpoints to support that. Subpoint A, monetary composition causes feeling of unfairness. According to an article published on HR Daily Advisor in 2013, it is risky for companies to have sizable differences in composition among team members because some of them may see these as unfair and unwarranted. The idea of fairness also determines if an employee will make an extra effort to reach the organization goals. Then, subpoint B, employees feel unfair easily. Based on what we learned in Class 9 motivation, According to the equity theory, people feel fair only when their inputs divided by their outcomes equals to others' inputs divided by others' outcomes. However, people make comparisons in a selfish way. They are often self-serving, their lack of full information, and they will magnify minor differences when making this comparison. Which means when rewards are comparison-based, it is easy for them to perceive their employers as being unfair. Which leads to our subpoint C. Feeling of unfairness will lead to a decreasing performance level. The same author that we cited in subpoint A also argues that just the perception that treatment is unfair can have a devastating effect on the organization, because the feeling of unfairness will trigger multiple behaviors that would decrease performance level. For example, it creates a climate of distrust and hostility. It will erode performance and employee commitment to the organization. It will increase counterproductive work behavior and reduce the willingness of employees to help each other. All of these examples will lead to a decrease in performance level, and the list still goes on. So to sum up contention 2, the comparison-based rewards will result in a feeling of unfairness among employees, which will then result in multiple ways of behavior that would decrease performance level. So this whole contention is another example of how employees will perform at a lower level when rewards are based on comparison. So since comparison-based rewards do not help boost performance level, we offer an alternative solution, which is temporal comparison, and this is our contention 3. First, let's get to know two kinds of comparisons. Temporal comparison, which is our alternative solution, is showing how well people are doing right now relative to how well they have performed in the past. In this case, employees are not compared to each other, but they are compared to their old performances. Then, social comparison. This is the kind of comparison that the affirmative side is advocating. It means comparing an employee's performance to other employees' performances. So to explain this in an easy way, you are worse than before is temporal comparison, and you are worse than others is social comparison. And then in this contention, we will show you how temporal comparison is better at increasing performance level than social comparison. Subpoint A, people's preference. People prefer temporal comparison rather than social comparison. A research study published on Harvard Business Review concludes that people who receive temporal comparison perceive significantly higher levels of fairness than those who receive social comparison. This is because temporal comparison takes individualized treatment for everyone. More personal factors are involved in making the evaluation, for example, family emergencies, personal health issues, and so on. And in this case, people feel that their rewards are distributed fairer. Then subpoint B, temporal comparison motivates people. According to research conducted in Columbia and Cambridge University in 2018, when organizations treat their employees as individuals and reward personal development, it helps the employees to develop a more positive attitudes toward their jobs, which in turn result in higher productivity, increased morale, and bottom line growth. One possible explanation of these findings is that employees will respond positively when specific aspects of their individual characteristics are recognized on the job. As they see challenges, failures, and opportunities with a more positive mindset, they would be better able to enhance their performance. So, to sum up contention 3, temporal comparison is a better way to boost performance level because first, it doesn't have those negative impacts caused by social comparisons like what we have talked about in contention 1 and 2. And second, it creates a feeling of fairness and a more positive job attitudes, which are two factors that could boost performance level.
Thank you for presenting your arguments, Jing. However, despite the compelling evidence, there are always two sides of the argument. Representing the affirmative side, I am here to argue that employees will perform at a higher level when rewards are based on comparisons of their performance relative to their peers than when they are not compared. The first point that I will bring up is that comparison, in fact, can motivate employees to do better. Social comparison theory, as previously discussed by Pulkit, is a theory that people have an innate drive to compare themselves to others. Social comparison is like a two-sided sword. It can demotivate workers, but it can also motivate different workers. Comparison is almost unavoidable, and it happens in multiple scenarios in everyday life, whether or not we are aware of it. In a study conducted by Kesici and Erdogan in 2010, they found that upwards assimilative comparisons are especially motivating because we believe that with practice and time, we could easily reach our peers' levels of performance. Upward assimilative comparison occurs when we compare ourselves to those who we perceive to be better than us, yet recognize that that person's circumstances could also easily be our own. Here's an example of upward assimilative comparison adapted from verywellmind.com. If we want to assess our skills as, for example, a salesperson, we might start by keeping a close track of our sales performance, and soon we will have a grasp of our abilities and capabilities. We might then begin to compare our performance to those that we know. And as a benchmark or an example, we might think of a colleague who has been the Employee of the Month for several times now. We too aim to gain the recognition and awards that they receive for their outstanding performance. When compared to them, our performance may not be as good as theirs, and although initially we may feel discouraged by the gap between our abilities, it will not last for long. We may soon begin to realize that we too are able to reach a similar skill level with more practice and experience. Thus, we feel inspired and can be motivated to perform better. Additionally, research suggests that non-competitive rewards programs are less effective than competitive ones. In a meta-analysis led by Stephen Conley, it was found that competitive programs produced a 27% gain in employee performance, while non-competitive reward programs resulted in a 22% increase in employee performance. Conley suggests that in certain organizations, higher performance may result from a highly competitive bonus program due to the culture that the company holds. An example that he quotes is the sales division of the company. After hearing both sides of the argument, I will now proceed to the conclusion to wrap up this debate. To sum it up, we believe that employees will not perform at a higher level when rewards are based on comparisons of their performance relative to their peers than when they are not, and that there are other more effective ways to boost performance. We acknowledge that social comparison-based rewards may yield some benefits, but believe that temporal comparison overcomes the shortcomings of comparing people to one another. By giving out rewards based on their performance, it leads employees to evaluate themselves relative to others, and due to their self-serving nature and lack of perfect information, they tend to judge themselves in a selfish way and will magnify minor differences. Thus, they will perceive a higher level of unfairness. When the rewards are based on performance, it can also cause both top performers and bottom achievers to become demotivated. Top performers will slack off because they know that they are doing much better than others, while the bottom achievers will become demotivated as they know that they are at the bottom. So, because of these two factors, social comparison will cause employees' performance to decrease. On the other hand, temporal comparison is capable of addressing the shortcomings of social comparison. By comparing employees to their own past selves instead of one another, they can see their personal development, and more personal factors are keyed in while making evaluations. This allows employees to feel like their rewards are distributed in a much fairer way, leading to higher perceived fairness. When employees feel like they are being treated fairly, they come to work with a positive attitude, which in turn increases performance. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our argument. And with this, we, ARGO, conclude the end of our debate. Thank you.